Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise, and welcome back to From the Depths, Let's Build, where, as you've probably guessed by the title of the video you clicked on, we're building an Ironclad. Ironclad meaning a warship in the style of, what was it? I guess 19th century, like mid to late 19th century stuff. Which is basically mostly made of wood, but with a covering of iron over the top of it, hence Ironclad, clad in iron. Not trying to do a 100% replica build here, because that's very difficult, and I'm not good at it. And yeah, so occasionally you will be seeing throughout this whole video kind of pauses on screen where I'm not doing anything. What I'm actually doing is just looking up reference images of real-life ironclads, but a whole different mess of them. So this thing ends up being quite a mishmash of things, like the USS Monitor is in there, the CSS Virginia, and others besides. So it ends up kind of looking like a bunch of them, but also none of them. So yeah. So, what are we doing right here now? So I actually started with the Broadside Guns, because I did want those. The end result is something that has both turrets and hull-mounted guns, because in that kind of transitional period of warships from wood to metal, they kind of experimented quite a bit. They were doing some hull-mounted stuff, they were doing some turrets. That's kind of when turrets actually started to be a thing on warships properly. If nothing else, because I'm not as knowledgeable on this subject as I perhaps should be. I really should have, looked up some stuff before doing this. But, well, you know, that's how it goes. I didn't get around to it. I'm sorry. And so yeah, this is, again, it's another one of those builds where it's pretty obvious to see that I really did not plan ahead. You'll see me change my mind a lot, particularly with these autoloaders. I kind of had a practice run with this kind of, this APS Tetris a few days ago, and then promptly forgot what I did. I was also indecisive about what kind of shell I wanted to use, and just how big the gun was going to be. Originally was kind of planning on making these broadside guns use 8-meter long shells, and then I reasoned, no. This thing is going to be too big if we do that. Let's keep it small. Let's keep it bite-sized. Let's keep it nice and crunchy. And in the end, this is a super flat boat. It has very little internal hull space. So it's perhaps a good thing that I built these broadside guns first, because otherwise I probably might not have had room for them at all. So that was a stroke of luck more than anything else. Stroke of luck, not genius. And yeah, I was messing around with the size of the autoloader because I remembered that, yeah, you need local weapon controllers. My dude, that's important. And sheer... I'm going to do that thing where I spoil what's later in the video slightly, but it's sheer dumb coincidence that I end up with a decent amount of recoil absorption for this, because what tends to happen if you just fly at an APS without thinking ahead of time, or for that matter designing the shell first, what tends to happen is that it's like, oh, blast, I need to just quickly improvise more recoil absorbers and more coolers and all that stuff. So yeah, got lucky this time. And you'll notice I'm doing an interesting thing right now. Metal on the outside, wood on the inside. And that's... I don't actually think this is a terrible way to armor a vessel. It's what you want when you want a nice balance between something being durable and something being cheap. Because of the way armor stacking works these days, you kind of want, yeah, it makes a little bit more sense to put the hard stuff on the outside rather than on the inside, but it depends on what you're trying to do. Certainly, thick layers of wood generally don't amount to much once you get serious ducker being chucked at you. That's mostly there for extra, block HP. Cheap HP, because wood is by far the cheapest form of just, having hit points in between incoming fire and your even more squishy bits. And yes, there is basically no spaced armor in this craft, because I was thinking, let's really lean into this whole pre-modern warship kind of thing. Although when modern actually starts and ends, I have no idea. History is funny like that. It doesn't have neat, it doesn't have neat division of time period. And I'm just going to interrupt myself to point out the slightly clever Tetris I've done here. It's just a means of having these two guns right next to each other without messing with each other. It's not the smartest Tetris you could do, but it certainly does for this. And yes, it's just 4 guns on each side, because I was actually looking at a blueprint, or at least a model, of the CSS Virginia, and that's what she apparently had. She had 4 broadside guns on each side, and that was plenty. Jolly good. And for those of you who don't know, I'm assuming a lot of people who watch these videos tend to be military hardware nerds. But yeah, I guess the 2 most famous Ironclad warships, at the very least for Americans, and I guess for a lot of other people as well, would be, and I hope I'm getting the names right, the USS Monitor and the CSS Virginia. So this is the American Civil War. Like, basically the only... the battle between those 2 is kind of legendary, because it's like... I don't remember exactly what the big deal was, but the main deal was that the CSS Virginia was the only ironclad the Confederates had, and the USS Monitor was the first ironclad that the Union had, and these 2 went head-to-head, and it turned out to be a stalemate, because both of the ships were, for their time, very well armored. They had, iron sides, iron deck, like proper iron cladding, but the explosive shells they fired were kind of underpowered, and so they couldn't actually damage each other to any significant degree, so it was kind of a draw. Unless I'm misremembering horribly, I think both sides claimed victory for that one. And that's all I know about that, so apologies, I perhaps should have looked that up a bit more. But that's not the only time and place where ironclads fought each other, as far as I'm aware. And that was me phone going bzzzt, probably me flatmate texting me, and that's alright. But yeah, ironclads, that's quite a brief moment in history if you think about it. Like, I've got to say that modern history is not my specialty. Like, I somehow ended up with a master's degree in history, for those of you who don't know. But that kind of modern period, like dawn of the modern world kind of thing, was not my specialty. My specialty was medieval history, specifically for Western Europe, which is, I don't know, perhaps a little bit of a cliche bit of medieval history to study, but I didn't particularly mind at the time. It was what interested me, so that's what I did. Also, interrupt myself once again, and you'll see that I am putting the reinforced wood not the way I usually would, so it's got the shiny side up, and that's because I thought, like, yeah, we can do Ironclad just by flipping reinforced wood around. It still kind of fits the theme. You've got wood on one side, and you've got iron question mark on the other, and it's like wood clad in iron. Super nice. And I think the end result looks pretty good. I'm pretty sure that there are people who are going to disagree with me on that one. And where was I? Oh yeah, so that kind of anything between 1500 to about 1900, I'm not so hot on. Like, there are certain events I'm okay with. There's certain like contexts I'm kind of familiar with during that time, but warship technology is not one of them, unfortunately. But yeah, so I do know that I guess it was a whole thing during the American Civil War, or the Confederate War is actually a better name for it. See, I have learned about that particular conflict a little bit because my history teacher in high school taught us American history, and he was an enthusiast about that period of history. Like, he had a lot to say about it. It was very informative and quite entertaining. He was from California. But anyway, so, yeah, apparently the powers that be in Europe were observing the conflict in America with great interest, particularly when it came to European, well, not European, to military technologies, because if you'd remember, those of you who are history buffs, there was quite a significant period of peace in Europe leading up to the First World War. In fact, that's perhaps one of the causes of the First World War, is that everybody... It was long enough that the societal memory about just how awful modern mechanized warfare, well, modern industrial warfare, I should say, people had kind of partially forgotten just how horrific it could be, and technology had marched on a little bit. So yeah, people kind of got unpleasantly surprised when the First World War came up. And they really shouldn't have been surprised, because the American Civil War, or Confederate War, was kind of a preview of that decades before. I might be misremembering that, but yeah. And yeah, the reason you could call it the Confederate War just as easily is because technically it wasn't a civil war. It's a civil war, I believe, is when a government basically turns on itself. And that's not really what happened. A new government was declared. The Confederates were a separate entity. And yeah, so that's why some people call it the Confederate War, rather than the Civil War. Although, interestingly, apart from the very end, it was actually kind of civil. Like, as far as wars at the time go, it wasn't nearly as brutal and vicious as European wars, like, that were kind of concurrent with it. I don't think there were any major European conflicts going on at the same time as the American Civil War, but it wasn't like, just the level of savagery wasn't quite on the same level. There wasn't raping and pillaging, there wasn't, you know, thousands of soldiers left to die of thirst after being wounded on a battlefield, which was a staple of, like, the Napoleonic Wars. It was just, that was rough. That was, those battles were really nasty. And I believe that is the time period in which, I think the Geneva Convention and the Red Cross kind of came into being, because observers of these conflicts were like, guys, this is actually not on. Like, war's nasty and that's unavoidable, but there's limits. There is limits to how practically nasty these things can get before it's just, you know, uselessly excessive. And I could be just talking out of my hat because, like, again, I didn't read up on this before starting this video. So let's talk about this Ironclad. You can see that I'm trying to work out... Yeah, I guess it is superstructure. I literally just discovered this kind of superstructure. Well, I did discover it, so to speak. Found out I like to build this kind of superstructure just today, just using 4-meter diagonal slopes. And just coming straight off the deck, and it's just super nice, and you can hide stuff in there, and it's jolly good, and I think it looks quite nice. And later on, I kind of scrap I make that significantly less pointy so I can actually stick some turrets on it. And I'm doing my usual dirty tricks of, well, you would have seen that before, just prefabbing stuff. My craft tend to be kind of symmetrical forwards and backwards, which is why I sometimes have trouble remembering which bit is the end, which bit is the front, and which bit is the back. And before anyone says anything, yes, I know that there's letters in front of the vehicle that says front, and yes, I know that there's an arrow on the building cursor that has an arrow in it, pointing to front and back. Though both those things are very easy to lose track of when you're, like, firmly up the bum hole of a craft, and you're just focusing on what blocks to place where, so... don't at me, I'm chillin'. Don't at me, I'm building. And there's our very imaginative name, just calling it the Ironclad. Really, like, this whole thing actually turned out smaller than I was expecting, which, is nice, because I hate it when I build a thing and it turns out too big. That always rustles my jimmies, so to speak, because I'm like, damn it, this thing is less affordable now. This thing has poorer fuel economy. I'm like that. I drive a 2003 Toyota Echo, so which is probably not that fuel efficient in this day and age. But getting a new car is hard, and I don't recommend it unless you actually need a new car. You've won a new car! Yeah, I remember, when was it? Just finding a thing, it was saying like, hey, you fill out this survey, you could win a new car. I'm like, I've got one. Why do I have nowhere to put another car? I barely have a place to put my current car. What do you do with a car once you win it? That's such an alien experience to me. I've never won anything as big as a car. I'm trying to think, have I ever won anything as a prize? I genuinely do not remember. I generally do not go into the draw to win such things. Don't buy lotto tickets. Buy candy. Actually, don't buy candy. Buy... I don't know. Buy things that make you happy and genuinely happy. Buy a notebook that you can draw in. Or write poems in, if that strikes your fancy. Poems actually tend to make me angry, so, I mentioned I studied history. I also studied English at university, and my goodness, I should not have done that. Maybe I was just unlucky, maybe it just wasn't for me, but ye gods, it didn't even help me write better, because most of my writing skill comes from learning history. Because there's real pragmatic need for being able to communicate clearly in a history class, whereas if you're doing an English course, if you confuse the lecturer, you win, because then they just kind of give you a higher mark. That's kind of mean to say, but that's how it felt like sometimes. I remember getting like a B+ in tests when I hadn't actually read the texts we were supposed to know. So yeah, that's not a super good look for English, is it? And that's also why, since I'm a filthy art student, that's why I suck at math. Because I didn't study higher level math. Even though I enjoyed math when I was in high school. I liked my math teacher. He was strict. He was strict. No nonsense. You do your math. You do your math. My favorite thing that guy said, his name was Mr. Lee. South African guy. Tough as nails. Whenever someone would be rocking on their chair inadvisably in his class, he'd just utterly deadpan and say, hey, you're rowing a boat there. That's a terrible impersonation of a South African accent, but, yeah, it's just, that kind of guy is just, you didn't want to annoy him because he would either, well, straight up give you detention, or just be so sarcastic at you that your tiny, tiny teenage ego would get crushed immediately, and I loved it. I think I was the only one who liked him. And that's unfortunate. But yeah, it's thanks to him that I know any math at all. What are we doing on screen? We're building a boat. You'll notice it's slightly less canoe-like than usual, just a little bit, teeny bit. I'm really starting to get fond of this kind of gently rounded slope thing, simply because it's kind of space efficient. It's not needlessly long, which I freely admit a lot of my stuff is just way too long. It's just the ends are so pointy that you can't actually put anything useful in them, apart from perhaps torpedoes. So yeah, fun. Fun, fun, fun. And I think I use more and more reinforced wood the longer I built this, so it's, I know. Oh my god, no, not again. You know what I think this is? People have told me often that they use my videos to go to sleep at night, which I take as a huge compliment, so thanks for telling me that, those who use me as a sleep aid. And I think it actually works on me as well, because it doesn't matter how alert I am when I do these post-commentaries for these Let's Build videos, I start to get sleepy as well. It's just watching me, past me, going busy, placing blocks here, there, and everywhere, like a gummy bear. It's just, there's something soothing about it. Like, not to toot my own horn, but I'm just watching this. I was there the first time, and yet I'm looking at this thinking, you know what? This is alright. I could let my eyeballs look at this for a while. Yeah, it's jolly good fun. It's also great to... I literally just forgot what that thought was going to be. So, yeah, soporific effect of me building stuff. Yeah, I think, what's past me thinking here? Past me is probably thinking, does that look good? Does that look good? Does that look good, though? There ends up being a fair amount of wasted space in this thing, but that's fine, that's fine. It's just, yeah. Alright, this is the part where I think, you know what, it would be a good idea just to armor this up a little bit. In fact, it's, kind of weird. These things are armored, like, better, like, on their internal side than on their external side, so... That's funny to me. It's like... Probably would have been better to stick more metal in between the autoloaders and the scary outside world. But yeah, this is just so they don't, hopefully, don't blow each other up. And yes, I know ejectors are a thing. Ammo ejectors were not invented in the 19th century. Don't at me, I'm building. Okay, so, yeah, there's a little bit of wasted space in there. Probably could stick surge protectors in there or something if I was wanting to be slightly more meta. But I'm not. Like, I don't think a craft with guns on either side of them like this are particularly meta because they can't actually turn 100% of their firepower, or the vast majority of their firepower on a single target. So they're kind of, it's the same reason that front-siders are so efficient is because their most well-protected bit and the bit with the most firepower is the front, and that's just pointed at the target. Whereas broadsiders is just, like real, like, I don't know, what would you call it? I guess double-sided broadsiders like this are inefficient because it means that, like, half their armament is pointed the wrong way at any given time. So yeah, that's, that is, like, it's funny how... art mimics real life in that way, because that's the reason that warships in real life stopped using this kind of thing. For the most part, you just, as time goes on, they do it less and less and less. Ooh, excuse me. Hot cross bun. Oh yeah, Easter was a thing. I don't really celebrate Easter, but yeah, hot cross buns, good once in a while. Easter always puzzled me because it's like, it's one of those holidays that, if you're not aware of the backstory of that, it's basically a pagan holiday that was hijacked by Christians in order to get the pagans on board with Christianity. So, yeah, that's where the bunny comes from. It was apparently Celtic moon goddess whose symbol was the hare. They turned it into a bunny, and I'm just remembering a very vague twinge of memory saying that that might not be true, so don't take my word for it. I'm just the guy building an ironclad right here. The more I talk, the more I realize I don't know stuff. Ooh. Oh no. Soothing sound of ironclad building. Oh yeah, I mentioned before, I changed my mind and made this slightly less pointy. Yep, this is the moment where that happens. So, like, don't say I didn't warn you. There's a reduction of pointiness happening around here. Okay. What is past BorderWise doing? He is deleting blocks. See, this is a major thing that eats time. Whenever I build something, is just changing my mind often. Like, I don't know, it's just there's good reasons, I think, why it's a good idea to plan ahead. And this is really a case of me never practicing what I preach, because I almost never plan ahead with builds. I think the last major build I planned ahead was the Stahlslung Mark II. I planned ahead with that, I built the turrets, and it was on the second attempt at making the hull that I decided, yeah, okay, here we go. This one is money. Let's do this. So yeah, it's a rum game planning ahead. Oh my goodness! Oh boy! I have no excuse for being. Actually, no, I do have an excuse for being tired. I was an idiot. I drank coffee at dinner last night. the night before recording this. Not a good move. I also had Malaysian food, which didn't sit very well, or at the very least did not mix well with coffee. If any of you have never had Malaysian food, do yourself a service and have a go at it. It's quite good. My favorite Malaysian thing is called a murtabak. It's a kind of roti, which is bread. It's a kind of bread, but it's stuffed with meat and filling, and it's very good. Served with curry, in my case mild curry, because I don't do spicy very well. And I do like eating spicy food, but yeah, so I do it for fun. Like, I'm not like some people. Jeez, I have known some people who they can just eat spicy. It's just things that would burn me going in and coming out. They can just go nom 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 nom, and it's just no problem at all. But yeah, so I can't do that, and so yeah, just watch what you eat, know what you are putting in your face. You'll notice what I'm doing right now. I'm making a nice wee armored turret with reinforced wood, and yes, this is going to be wee cram cannons, which actually ended up being the perfect size. They were exactly the size I wanted. Oh man. Ooh. Oh, stop it. Oh boy. I'm cursed, I tell you. Cursed, I say, to always be yawning during these Let's Builds. I guess also it's like, I don't know, I can relax more doing this post-commentary thing. I'm not playing a video game at the exact same time. My hands are away from keyboard. I am in fact AFK while still being AK at keyboard. I've actually never stuck reinforced wood on a turret quite like this before. It's an interesting look. Of course, this is where I very wisely fill in the deck around this turret before sticking the pancake turret cap on it, because that obscures what you're doing and makes life very difficult. Ooh. Ooh, thrilling! Thrilling! This is Thriller! Thriller Night. I don't know the rest of that song. Anyway, what is me doing? Ah, yes, so one of the reasons that I'm so fond of circles is because I spent a merry afternoon, once upon a time, just creating prefabs of a whole bunch of differently sized circles from the depths. And now I use them all the time, because they're there, they're prefabbed, they always look good, and I just love them to pieces. Also, they work quite well. It's like, these pancake turrets, simply because they're so wide, you can put a lot of material in between whatever's inside them and the big scary outside world, which means they stack up to damage pretty well. They need to get hit with something pretty significant in order to be disabled immediately. Man, now I'm craving pancakes. Why have you done this? I had a shot of coffee and everything before recording this. I wonder if caffeine even works on me anymore. I really hope it does. It would suck if it didn't, because then I will never be awake again. Dum 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 dum. Okay, so this is... Yeah, okay, so there's our pancake turret. I usually stick a second layer on top of it just for extra armor. In this particular case, I reasoned, nah, I've already done a whole bunch of non-meta things for this craft, so we're going to keep it nice and flat, and just less barrels than usual, just get it to a reasonable accuracy level. Ended up being 0.37, which isn't super good accuracy, but it's nice and stubby, and that's what counts. Fuse box, right there. Because there's no space below deck, me mateys. And this is the point I decided to be clever, is like, hey, what if I stuff this with reinforced wood? Will that make it more strong? The answer is yes, yes it will. This whole thing is just a disaster for heat and hash waiting to happen by the... Actually, maybe not hash so much, but... Actually, no, definitely hash. But yeah, I'm just... this was definitely a fun build, because I think building in the style of a 19th century Ironclad, you're pretty much guaranteed not to end up with a particularly meta craft. Unless you make it fly at like 200 meters per second and stick lasers on it or something. In which case, that's not very 19th century, is it? And you should be ashamed of yourself. Ooh, man. And this is not the best Crime Tetris either, but the more efficient kind of 3x3 Crime Tetris that I've kind of figured out how to do is it doesn't actually work in a 3x3x2 space. So this is it. And that's an under 20-second reload, so that's A-okay. And I believe this is the part where I remember ahead of time to stick the firing restrictions on, which I almost never do. I usually end up doing that afterward and just being like, oh, dang it, I need to do that. I need to do that. I need to do that thing. So yeah. Now what am I up to? Past me, what are you up to? Tell me you say... Ah, there goes the other turret. So yeah. I remember being told once, with regard to turrets, that, and talking about... When was it? I don't know how long ago this was, but, it was like, talking about gun carousel. So, in From the Depths, what that means, it's a spin block, with, guns on it, and the spin block spins. And the guns all fire in sequence as the enemy craft move into their firing arc. And I have been told that's how the first gun turrets actually worked. It's just they just spun around and to point guns at the target, rather than what we tend to think of gun turrets doing, which is having one gun and they aim at the target and you keep loading that one gun. Quote-unquote pro. Oh man, no, I'm waiting, no. The soothing sound of ironclad construction. Crash, bang, bing, bong. Oh boy. One of my neighbors actually was having their door fixed. And credit to the guys fixing it, they did a bang-up job. Looks good as new, but I can't help but wonder what on earth happened to it. Like, I think they got broken into. Which is scary, because that's literally right next door to me. But also it's like, wow, like, whoever wanted in, they really wanted in. Oh boy, what are you up to, BorderWise? What are you up to? Copy-pasting! Like a sensible person. How did we... as From the Depths players, managed to survive in the dark ages before Control-C and Control-V. Seriously, I do not remember a time when I didn't make use of that. Man, the devs are good at making features that are just super handy. You just can't live without anymore. You know what I can't live without anymore? Missile interceptors. I never used them before the update that allowed them to target cram cannons as well, because they're so much simpler and cheaper than laser missile systems, or at least I think they're cheaper. They're certainly more volume efficient. And it's just, I love them. They're so easy to just plonk down. You just plonk down a whole line of small missile interceptors and away you go. Speaking of plonking, this is me like rethinking about where to stick the ammo compartment. I end up sticking it at the back. And don't need much ammo for this thing, simply because, well, it's got 2 cram cannons and like 8 APS guns. So yeah, and also we end up with kind of a turtleback armor scheme here, because we don't actually have room for a proper separated citadel, which once again means that if this thing ever gets heat or hash fired at it, it is dead. Completely dead. Dead, I say. Now what are we doing? AI compartment? No, I'm misremembering. we're gonna finally figure out how to put ammo on this thing. No, wait, no, I mean, ammo customizers. That's the one. That's the bunny. That's the living drought. Yeah, we're not fond of rabbits down here in New Zealand. Like, don't think we hate them quite as much as the Aussies do, because, man, you want to... this is generalizing a little bit, but man, if you want to, get an Australian angry, just remind them that rabbits exist. Because, you can see the difference, from space, what rabbits have done to Australia. Like, on one side of the Great Rabbit Fence, in Oz, the land is green. And on the other side, it is not green. Guess which side the rabbits, were on. And that's all because of just one British bloke who, back in the day, wanted to bring some of good old Mother England to the savage outback. And he released a few pairs of rabbits on the land he settled on. Just for hunting purposes. And they ate the countryside bare. Because rabbits do that. And, yeah, so... that's definitely one of the biggest mistakes of history I've ever heard of. Same with the complete idiot who introduced brush-tailed possums here to New Zealand. Because, yeah, like, it's the sad irony. It's like, if you, for those of you who don't know, brush-tailed possums are actually under a bit of stress over in their native Australia. They're not doing so well. Like, I think it's a mixture of habitat loss and just drought and just dwindling forests and all that stuff. They're not doing super well. They're doing way too well over here. They will eat native birds and their eggs and the native plants which can't resist, which, you know, would never evolve to be grazed on by mammals. So that's an issue here. And completely change the topic, look at the shells we're making here. I basically wanted to go just full HE. I thought about making this like an APHE shell, but I thought, nah, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Just, you have a whole bunch of HE warheads, and yeah, over 4,000 damage each. Never mind, make that 5,000. Just wanted that extra bit of kablooey. And yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful and lovely and lovely. I actually quite like the way these guns turned out. They're not super good APS, I will freely admit that. I do like how they all fit together, and I do like how there's just a bunch of them like that. It's satisfying to watch them fire, even though they don't go rat-a-tat-tat the way that a properly meta APS does. I just realized I'm leaning away from the microphone. That's probably not a good idea. And, yeah, so now we're setting the fire rate for them. And I goof right there, and then I fix my goof. And then we do this, and then we do that, and then we do this. And now on to the other side. And also, yeah, you gotta... This is why designing the shell first is a good idea for From the Depths. When making APS, is because it means that you can plan out properly ahead of time what the gun is actually going to be made of. And if you don't do that, you kind of have to, well, you have to do literally what I just did there, is, oh darn it, barrels need to be longer. Those are quite long barrels, by the standards of Ironclads. Like, if you look up pictures of, Ironclad, warships, like, they definitely don't have gun barrels that long. That is, yeah, that is the ball game, I guess. I guess if I really wanted to be, keep it realistic-ish, I should have just gone with, like, 1 meter long shells. But I didn't feel like doing that, and so I didn't. So instead we got these 3 meter long shells that blow things up quite nicely. And I kind of bounce around a little bit. Oh, this is just checking, how much ammo we need. We don't need any more, and yep, test fire. Beautiful. Beautiful, lovely, jubbly. I like that. And this is just me admiring my handiwork, I guess, and, do we have an AI compartment yet? I forgot. No, we don't, because we're about to make one. And I accidentally make it too wide. I thought, like, you know what, let's not make it too long, and then I remember, like, why would I make it too long? Most AI systems are only about 3 blocks wide anyway. So yeah, and just lots of stone out of sheer habit, though, honestly, this thing can just about take on easier Deepwater Guard and maybe Onyx Watchcraft, and so it's never gonna really get EMP thrown at it. And if it does, what are you doing? Like, that's addressed to me and you. How dare you? How dare you throw EMP at this thing, which is probably very resistant to EMP, apart from all the reinforced wood on it. This is me having a think. Yep, that's me having a think like, oh dear, I have forgotten how to brain. So yeah, ooh man, ooh boy, I need to get an early night tonight. I need to get an early night every night. I need a knight in shining armor to hit me over the head and say, like, you must go to sleep now. There we are, going to quest in the morning. And I'm like, what? Who are you? How'd you get into my house? And I said, you willed me into existence. Now go to sleep, or I will hit you with this mace again. I'm like, dude, that's assault. That's illegal. And said, like, I am of noble birth. I can do whatever I like. And once again, my history degree comes into play with me role-playing how a knight would encourage me to go to bed on time. What is happening anymore? Where's my brain at? But yeah, it's just, is there any medieval literature I can recommend people while we're watching this AI compartment get built? Well, if you've never read how do you pronounce it? Sengrimus, that's the one. That is spelled Y-S... Hang on, I need to write it out. I need to write it out on this piece of paper, which is conveniently right in front of me. I kind of miss just reading, whenever I do videos, reading notes. Damn it, this pen sucks. I kind of miss reading notes off paper, because you don't get that tactile sound. And so it's just kind of amusing to me. Like, even when I'm doing it, and after when I'm editing the video later, it's like, okay, so blah blah blah, this is how this works, and then this is how that works too. So, okay, Sengrimus. So this is old school, medieval. Yeah, it's poetry. So I'm not sure how easy it is to get a translation of it. I think you'd have to buy a book. And apologies for those of you who don't have money. But yeah, Ysengrimimus. And that is, basically, it's mostly animal allegory. It's about the wolf, Sengrimus, and how his misadventures, often involving Renard the fox and all that kind of stuff. Lots of moral, lots of, like, I believe it was originally written by a monk. It's been a while since I've read up on it, or read it. But yeah, just lots of moral stuff. Super violent, super sexual as well. So yeah, medieval times were old school in that way. Wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. So instead, let's think about the telescopes that I'm about to put on this Ironclad, because I did not stick radars or anything on this, because it just kind of felt weird. Didn't really match the aesthetic. So it's got telescopes, it's got cameras, it's got a wireless snooper, which I guess isn't that fitting and is a bit anachronistic, but shush, you can't see that. It does mean that this thing is probably, like, incredibly good bearing calculation, because it's got like 4 telescopes on it, which are like camera gimbal trackers. And so yeah, so this is me looking at the detection and thinking, how do I make this work? And of course, instead of making a mast, I decide to make a smokestack first. I do like the new smokestack block, the new smoke block, because it just looks like a grill. It looks like a delicious George Foreman grill. I've never used a George Foreman grill. What is a George Foreman grill? I know who George Foreman is. He was a boxer. I don't know if he's still alive. I do know that he fought Muhammad Ali, and that was a big thing back in the day. And yeah. Actually, if we're talking about history some more, if you have not read up on Muhammad Ali, do yourself a favor and read up on him, because truly a fascinating figure, and I don't remember if he's still alive or not. So, yeah, I think, is he still kicking? I don't know. I do not know. I apologize for not knowing. I keep ending up talking about stuff that I am not 100% smart on, shall we say. But yeah, Muhammad Ali, interesting dude. Born Cassius Clay, and don't you dare call him that now, because he chose a new name. So yeah, man, I love that smokestack. That George Foreman grill is cooking up something fine. Here's me thinking, do I want this pole? Do I want this pole? What can I stick on top of this pole? Can we work with this pole? Are we going to get the satisfactory statistical results with this pole? How are we going to do this? Guys, this is a pole. And it's weird. Yeah, I do end up changing this, by the way. I'm thinking like, oh, jeez, no, this ain't working for me. This ain't working. That's the way you do it? Like, money for nothing and your chicks for free. Did you know that? That has got to be... That's basically the only Dire Straits song that I kind of know reasonably well at all. It's just money for nothing. It has not aged well. Yeah, there's issues with it, which I will not go into. But if you listen to the song, you'll probably pick up why it's perhaps not played on the radio so much anymore. Well, for one thing, the damn thing is like, you know, 8 minutes long. It comes from the days when you were allowed to have really long instrumentals in your songs. And there wasn't a swarm of marketeers pressuring artists to be like 3 minutes or less with their songs to maximize revenue. Yeah, I'm salty about the music industry. I'm salty about every industry. Every single one. Including the salt industry. Man, it made me thirsty. And this is me. Yeah, but, detection is one of those things. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things. And, yep, my brain was involved in that statement somewhere. I'm not sure how. Must have made the word somehow. This is something I'm kind of proud of. This is a recent patch change, actually, is that you don't need to do funky things with rudders. They will auto-adjust what they're doing depending on which way they're facing. So I don't need to... Back in the day, if you wanted to stick a rudder on the front of your craft, you'd need to flip it around and also turn it upside down. Don't need to do that anymore. You can stick it right side up and it will automatically adjust and be wonderful. And time for a control seat on the superstructure, because sure, that's a lot better than where I stuck it before. Control seat, do I put it there? Yes, I do, and the prefab failed for some reason. For some reason. Also, talking about new features, talking about Control C and Control V earlier, that backspace and turn off connection detection, is that what it's called? I don't remember. That is such an absolute godsend for building. It just makes things so much quicker and easier, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful, I tell ya. It's beautiful, mate. You should give it a try. Is this an Australian accent? Must be the George Foreman grill up top. It's making me think of the Barbie. Put a prawn on it. Apologies to the whole of Australia. I hope you deal with your rabbit problem sooner rather than later. That's kind of hard to do, though. Yeah, it's the fun thing that Australia is like the meme is that in Australia everything's trying to kill you, but honestly, you gotta remember that Australia is, well, it's a continent, but it's also kind of an island, it's isolated, so a lot of the native wildlife there actually doesn't do well with the intruders that have been introduced there. Like, there's a whole mess of feral animals in Australia that are basically running amok, and there's not much the native creatures can do against them. So that's where humans need to pick up the slack and deal with stuff. Like, what have they got? They've got feral cats and foxes. Dingoes were introduced so long ago, they're almost a native species now. They're just a part of the ecosystem. But yeah, there's also camels. Not sure about wild horses, but yeah, definitely camels. Ironically, I think wild dromedaries. In Australia, that's the only place they actually roam. It's like, it's feral, formerly domesticated camels that just, you know, they got turned loose and away they go. And I think they are a pest because, you know, they eat the native plant life and stuff like that, which didn't evolve to deal with camels, because camels are hardcore, man. What has been happening on screen? I certainly wasn't paying attention. Oh, yay, this is the fun bit. We'll talk about camels later. Steam engine time, and thank goodness, firstly, that I figured out the steam engine promptly, and secondly, that I'm actually using Steam. I'm trying to get into Steam, bit by bit. It's not easy. And this, one of the major problems I have with Steam is just getting it to make a reliable source of power, because in mucking around with Steam, the displayed power is not actually the power you get. The moment you put it under load, well, it doesn't actually dish out that much power because you lose steam pressure. So part of the trick I'm finding is just matching boilers with pistons, like enough so that even if it's under full load, it still gives max power. In this particular case, I kind of forgot that steam pipes need at least one block of clearance. I completely forgot about that, and so you'll see me quickly improvise something in a little moment. But yeah, this is a Steam design I'm reasonably proud of. I call it, what did I call it? It has a number. It's the Steady something. I think it's the Steady 3600. Because that's what it does. It gives 3600 power steady. Or was it 3600? It might have been 3600. I forgot. I forget. I don't know these things. So yeah, it's just figuring it out slowly but surely. Steam engines. I guess I should do a Steam showcase at some point. It's just like, hey, these are some Steam engines I've made that I think work pretty well. Tell me what you think. And then the people who don't know anything about Steam can learn something. And the people who do know something about Steam can laugh at me and say, no, BorderWise, that's not how we do things. Oh yeah, so it's definitely 3600, which isn't a huge amount of power, I guess. But I think this thing is slightly more efficient than an injector engine of the same power, so you know what? That's totally worth it. I really could have stuck more power using things on this. But that's the thing, I'm dealing with 19th century technology, and they didn't have much power costs. It's not like they had freaking lambs on them or anything. So that would be hilarious. Maybe I should stick a whole bunch of simple cannons on this thing as well. Or not. I'm pretty much basically done with it. This is one of those rare Let's Build episodes where I did everything I wanted to do just with this Let's Build, and yeah, like, what you're looking at here is mostly finished. Well, I guess you could guess that, because the video is getting close to being finished. How's that for breaking the fourth wall? And yeah, just usual stuff, getting a basic behavior in there, my default behavior, just simple broadside, so you always know which direction it's going to go in. And yeah, and it's just combat test, and I immediately remember what I've forgotten, and all that stuff. And of course we're going to shoot a marauder, because that's awesome. And Yeah, this thing is fun to watch fight. It just is. I think that was a horrible miss. And I think those were all horrible. Actually, no, not really. We scored some hits. And yeah, so I'm finally, after, geez, 3,000 hours from the depths, really cottoning on to the fact that crams are short-range weapons, and, well, bluntly, they're not as good as basically every other weapon in the game, but really, if you're gonna use them, get up close. Get up close. Get up close and nasty. And, yeah, I just remember in the nick of time that I didn't stick fuses on these crams, and that is a big problem. So, yeah, we're just gonna do that. I do like how this thing looks. I do think they, like, smooth, reinforced wood works well, just in contrast to the metal. I do think it works well. What's happening there? Oh yeah, aim point selection, that's another thing I forgot. Whoopsie whoopsie. And yep, and target prioritization, you need that as well. It helps that I've just kind of been mucking around and just making little wooden cram canoes again. Or not so little, as it turns out. And just that gets me in the good mood for building. And goes bang bang bang. Lots of smoke, lots of steam. It's good to watch. Yeah, I actually quite like this. I had fun making this. It's nice every so often just to make a thing that's... It's not meta, it's not designed to win you the campaign or anything like that. It's just something that you look at it and it makes you happy. That's, at the end of the day, that's what you should do in From the Depths, is build things that make you happy. Don't worry if it's good. Don't worry if other people will like it. At the end of the day, you gotta like it. You are the one you must please in this predominantly single-player game. And I stick glass around this for some reason. Don't actually need to. I changed that a little while, because yeah, that little... This pogo stick of a detection mast is not doing it for me. I mean, I don't think there's any real way I can make this look good, except possibly decorations. Well, yeah, that is in fact how you would make this look good. Decorations. You damn fool. Where are we? Here we are, yeah. So here, okay, so... I'm not sure if this looks better, to be perfectly honest with you. I really should have, I was actually originally working off, looking at a reference of an Italian Ironclad warship, which I've forgotten the name of completely, but, yeah, that's basically the final detection mast. Also, I just got texted again. Or maybe that was something else. I don't know. I should turn my phone off when I record, completely. And then if there is an emergency of some kind, well... that sucks for me, doesn't it? Yeah, so this is basically the only decoration we're doing on this. It's just sticking a rangefinder in there, making it look like... I don't even know what. Like an anachronistic radio aerial? Like rigging of some kind? I don't know. This thing clearly is not sail-powered, so I don't know what that's made of. Again, I was looking at the mast of an Italian Ironclad warship, rather than the two major inspirations, which were the USS Monitor and the CSS Virginia. So yeah, that's basically it for this video. Really, is like there it is, there she is, there is an Ironclad. And I've made one. That's been floating around on the to-do list for quite some time, actually. So, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps. And there's fun perks in it for you. Thank you to all my current supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths. Farewell.